September 27th. The time is 2:05 p.m. I call to order the Administration Committee meeting with Councilors Abbott and Clark present as committee members. Good afternoon, ladies. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read the minutes of Tuesday, June 28th. If you have, if I could get a motion and a second for approval of those minutes.
I move approval except to fix the spelling of minutes in...
Oh, I see that. I'm about to misspell it myself. All right. Councilor Clark.
I'll second that amendment.
All right. Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of Tuesday, June 28th with a correction in spelling in item number 2 of the word minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes, so those minutes are approved. Next, councilors, as new business, we do have before you, and you have a copy, there's a consideration for form revisions to our transparency form, our city government transparency form, and Attorney Jim Stanley is going to come and present this information for us. Hello, Mr. Stanley.
Good afternoon to the committee. I'm working with Attorney Keith Sheffield, I think, who's really spearheaded the project, but I was there at the inception of the original form, have a lot of institutional knowledge. I know that, for example, and she may know it, Councilor Abbott was actually the spark that led to the creation of that form back in around 2009. As probably a lot of you all have, we do receive regular questions, complaints, concerns about the form, about the length of it, what's involved, especially with a lot of the entities who get city funding on an annual basis. If you look at an entity like REV, which used to be OMB, that goes back that many years, are they really going to have to provide every single contract, a copy of every contract they've done with the city, or even list those out? What we're interested in, though, is hearing you all's feedback about what you would like to see in it, what starting with this existing form, what to keep, what not to keep. What we've been doing is trying to look at what other cities do too, and with only a couple of exceptions, for the most part, their forms are substantially shorter than this. They go towards the root of this, and that's to ask information that will lead to a conflict of interest. That's defined differently under different state laws, so how it's asked and what they need is varies, but that's a general concept. I've seen them as short as 1 page. Not that that's what we would go to, but they're by and large a lot less lengthy, require a lot less information, and a lot of the information that is arguably extraneous in our form, they just don't bother with. So, not that we have to get a response today, but if you all would want to take a look at that and give us a response back, we'll take that into account. In the meantime, I think we are going to continue to look at what other cities are doing and maybe put together a couple of pro forma type transparency forms and send those back to you all, if that's okay.
Thank you. I'm really excited to know that you had opportunity to be a part of this process initially, as well as the Dean of our council, Mrs. Abbott. Mrs. Abbott, I'll start with you and just see if you have any comments or thoughts about any revisions that we want to make to this form or that would need to be made to the form.
Well, us golden oldies. I do think that changes need to be made. We get the same complaints everybody else gets, but I think the transparency form is important. Mm-hmm. It's just that if you just filled one out 6 months ago and now you're filling out a whole new one, could you not say that nothing has changed? Or, something to make people's lives a little easier. And I think it would be great, since I noticed we're adding this language as defined in section 36-5-127 Code of Alabama. It'd be great if we could have a link to that thing so that people could click on it. I don't know whether that's possible.
Sounds like part of the ethics law.
Yeah,
is where that comes
but
from.
I mean, yeah, are you related by blood or marriage to city officials? But you know, a lot of times they refer you to something, you spend 3 hours trying to find it
Yeah.
because you don't know where it is. So it seems to me if we could have a link or put it on our website or do something so people could find things. But what little I've read so far, it seems appropriate to make these changes. And I do think if you simply could affirm that all the information is the same as your last one that you filled out, that would simplify people's lives. I mean, we don't want to be onerous, we just want to know who's who. And we used to have to ask. Right. And then you'd listen to this big long explanation of who these people are and where they came from and how it is that we're using them. And if you can just read the transparency form, you don't have to.
That's just a lot of questions.
Yeah, well, we used to stay in council meetings till 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and so, saving time was important. But I'm in agreement. It needs modification, but it doesn't need to go away.
Thank you.
Kind of like neighborhood associations. You might need modification, but taking them away is bad.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Clark.
Works, but anyway, it's not lighting up. But I too agree. I think simple is always better, and the more explanatory the questions can be, so that people aren't confused. And I think we're pretty new at doing like discretionary contracts for discretionary funding and stuff, but I know we've had a lot of back and forth with people filling it out incorrectly, and then we have to go back, and we don't know what the correct way to fill it out is, so then we've got to try to sort of quarterback, getting them the right instruction. So I think the more clear the questions can be, so that, or maybe even an example of what the answer might need to be. I don't have a lot of personal experience with the form, but the staff in the District 8 office does. And I know that one of the things that has hung people up the most is providing copies of contracts that we ought to have too. I mean, we ought to have them just as they ought to have them. But I don't know how that could be simplified. I do think it's important to know, for the left hand to know what the right hand is doing if we're all, it's a big organization. So to know the various ways the city might be doing business with a vendor, I think is really important and might help us to, aggregate our spend and get a better deal with the particular vendor. So, I mean, I get the value of it. I just, but maybe it's like a certificate of insurance. If you got one on file in a fiscal year, maybe you just give updates from the last one that's been on file or something. Any changes since the last one.
But that might get really messy too, because let's say number 20. Look at number 20 on page 4. Okay, during the past 3 years, have you provided campaign contributions to anybody in the government? So if you didn't before and then last year you did, then you're going to write to us and say, well, number 20 has changed, and then who keeps up with that? You've got a old form and you've got a new piece of a form, but you don't have a whole form. So it gets messy, but still, if you've just filled one out for a project 6 months ago and everything's the same, you should be able to say so.
Yeah, and I don't know how vendor information.
Maybe one a year.
Well, that's what I was thinking. One a year, sort of like a certificate of insurance would be on file for a vendor for a given year, I think.
And I was going to say, that's piggybacking, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's some of the feedback that I've been receiving is just one way to streamline it. But I understand the notion that we want to be sure, though, we are getting the factual up to date, because things can change. But one of the big things was, could this stay on file for a year, and then that you don't have to fill it out at each event or each time.
Yeah, and maybe at the, when they do it the next year, they're answering for things that happened since they filed it the last year, so that if they made a campaign contribution since the last filing, it would pick up on the next one. Because I don't think it would preclude them from doing business. It would just be transparency, a disclosure. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, what I'd like to do, you would like for us to provide comments or feedback.
Yes.
And I think what I'm hearing from the committee then is that we're all in agreement that there should be some changes made. And I was wondering, for a period of time then, could we just send this out to each counselor and then get their feedback? But with our coming forward from this committee is that we are in agreement that that form does need to change. Now, would the form have to come back to this committee for approval, or would it go to the full council?
That's really up to you all. Since there's not a complete form,
That we would recommend it to the
Okay.
full council.
All right. So, keeping in mind then, if we feel it's best that we recommend it to the full council, we could go out for the comments and have those to come back to us for a period of time, get that feedback to you, and then we could set our next meeting for what would be the proposed draft for our consideration. Is that
okay, sure.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here looking at this, and the committee, well, really everybody on the council, you have to think about the unintended consequences of what you're doing. Say on number 18, they added Donald Trump to their board of directors during a year. Well, we would want to know that. We wouldn't want them to say, well, we filed at the beginning of the year, so we didn't have to file another one, and he's a good guy.
But in between that time,
Something big could happen. I mean, there are a few items on here that if something changed, you really need to tell. Whereas if you just filed one of these 6 months ago and nothing has changed, you don't need to file another one.
But I think you'd pick it up the next year.
But you might want to know this year.
Well,
Has
you
anybody
probably,
been
here's the
this-
thing, if you're doing business with them, you probably know, but would you not do business with them? I mean, the difference is they don't have to update the
I
form.
quit doing business with them because it would show they didn't have any brains. But, that was just an example of someone that everybody knew. But, if somebody's been barred from participating in federal, state, or local governmental contracts, we need to know that like right
In real
now.
time, yeah.
We don't need to wait. So,
Yeah, well, one way to approach that, though, would be you would have an option to check a box if nothing has changed. It's the same form that would have been before, and if there have been changes, then you need to submit the changes.
Or maybe when is the last time you filled out this form?
Yeah.
And then they put that date, and then if there's been no change since then.
Right. There's a little bit of a.
we send them the one that we have on file, and they have to affirm that everything on it is the same, because, I just see that, we could get into a mess if we just say file it once a year and next year we'll catch your changes if you
There's
have
a
any.
little bit of a catch-22 in, checking the box to say nothing's changed if this vendor had a contract in the past year, because that's new, but then that kind of puts you right back into the same cycle we're in now. So we'd probably want to think of a way to factor for that.
Yeah.
Well, I would, Madam President and fellow members, I would just say if there's some models that you've discovered that you think could get us where we'd like to be, and I know it might not be, I don't know, I'd just like to see some of those. Couple of those.
We've got some.
Yeah, I think that would be beneficial to us to just look at, because so much has changed over a period of time. I don't know the last revision. Is this the original document, or it's had some revisions, right?
I think once it was adopted, it has not changed. When it was first presented, the questions about the lobbyists, which were really what triggered the need for the form in the first place, was not included. But it was whichever council committee asked that be included, and then, it was adopted. It was adopted by resolution too. It really should be an ordinance. I mean, that's more of a legal thing, but it's not in you can look in the city code and you're not going to find that requirement in there.
Would that be a change we want to consider? Or is
I think whatever is done should definitely be adopted by ordinance. So it's legislation of the council.
Council
Let me
Clark?
just ask if right now people have to actually submit the contracts they've had with the city, right? Could we have maybe like a form where they could just say the date of the contract, the value of the contract, and maybe some kind of reference number, that we don't have to attach all that? Because I'm sure we have these documents on file in the city clerks.
I think the current form already asks for that. It asks for that, and then you provide a copy of the contract on top of it.
Ms. Kidd?
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Sheffield, Elisa Smiley, and a couple other attorneys, we have been working on this, so I didn't know that it was coming before, so it's probably my mistake. But we have had questions, and I think the first one arose with Councilor Hunter 3 years ago, that it should be something that we were having to fill this out if someone got a contract twice in one fiscal year. So we wanted something to certify that nothing had ever changed before. And then, as what you're saying about the contracts, if we had the contracts on file, and if they were indeed being reviewed, then why are we submitting them again? And then another question that we had as relative to our contracts was some of the questions that were being asked did not pertain to the service performance of our contracts. So whether or not we got they got a $50 million government contract from the federal government, did that mean that, what was the significance? If we could have that explained. Maybe a question is, have you ever defaulted in performance on a contract, rather than how much money have you gotten from a contract? Those kind of questions we've been asking them, and Ms. Smiley and I worked on it, but she said there were other departments who wanted to weigh in, so I think she was pulled away, and then we started working with Mr. Sheffield, and scheduling became an issue. But this is an issue for us. The kinds of contracts that you all are carrying through on discretionary just doesn't warrant the level of scrutiny, and I can't see how they could get to all of the information to confirm it, especially where how much money and who else is supporting me. What does that really have to do with the performance of what you are getting for the services that we're asking them to give us? But maybe if they said, as they asked on your credit, have you ever bankrolled? Maybe that may be a red flag, but not how much money I got. I could have got $3 trillion. Is that a go, no-go for us? So I'm not sure. So I would like, since it is getting circulation, if you all are, I really would like to stay with this to see that if we could get a shortened form to some degree and some consistency, because I think last week we have someone who is sending the contract back for some reason, and we have 3, sometimes 4 people who are working to serve as non-counselors. So if everybody is not getting the same information, I'm having some counselors going through pretty quickly and others who are being stagnated. So I would like to stay with it.
Well, one of the things that we had discussed prior to was getting that type feedback and providing that back to Mr. Stanley through Sheffield and the other group that were working on it, yourself, and then we would filter that information to them for them to work on a draft that would come back to us for this committee, and then we would look at that and then distribute that back out to for full council consideration. So time frame of how to facilitate this. I know that you've already, as you said, Ms. Kidd, there's some work that's being done with this already. And I wanted to get additional counselor comments. I know that your team works very closely with each council office, so it's generally the 3 team members that you talked about that are speaking to each of our council staff individually. So, of course, we need your feedback, and hopefully that is seen here in what we've got in the red lines. I'm not sure, but I don't know how that feedback has been going back and forth with Attorney Sheffield. But we can certainly add it. It's definitely valued. It's something that's needed. Just from, when you look at those of us who are, we're being managed by this process in order, when we go out to want to provide those funds, and then that individual has to create or complete this form, as well as on your side from the processing of it, as well as the training of each of our staff in order to how to benefit this. Because I can see how we may each be working independently of each other, but there's some information that can be housed through some of the links we're talking about, or when you're talking about Councilor Clark with the contracts, I think you've got the same idea of why are we having to copy that again if we've got a contract that obviously has to be,
Yeah,
on file somewhere.
Yeah, most of our vendors, if I'm not mistaken, is going to have a current W-9 on file, which is in the system. Articles of incorporations are asked on every one of these, and we have, with council and discretionary dollars, you all probably have a 40% repeat rate of who you give money to. And so those articles are housed under their vendor number, or could be. And so that could be expedited if they've done something. So that's where we were trying to get, but it just did not. The information obviously didn't flow through my office.
So, Attorney Stanley, then can we get that information that's already been generated or been provided to Attorney Sheffield and through the team that was working on it before, and that we get some assurance that those comments are also being looked at and are weighed into these changes? Does that make sense? Councilor Abbott got a look like.
Well, you just confused me.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But the articles of incorporation have been redlined anyway on here, on this proposal. So they don't have to provide those anymore. I just think we just need to sit down and read it and think about it, and then let all the council members read it and think about it, because we want the information. We just don't want to ask for too much information, and we don't want to be burdensome, but we still want the information.
I'm in agreement with that. Councilor Clark?
I was just going to say, I do agree with Councilor Abbott that we should just sit with it, but I think the markup that we sit with, I would like for it to consider the work that's already been done.
Yes, definitely.
If this doesn't already.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
And so, Ms. Kidd, we've passed you this copy of this as well, so of course we want that input from your team, as well as Attorney Smiley from a risk management or compliance standard, and then that feedback from each counselor, because I think each council office views this form in a different way, and probably those who've worked with it the most versus the newest. And there's that learning curve, but it shouldn't be this
Onerous.
Yes. Honestly. That's really what the goal here was, have the team work on that and then have a form that's usable, but has the information that we need, because it's meant to be transparent. But I do agree with Administrator Kidd in that generally within the 4 years that you are in this seat and you are generating contracts for discretionary funding, I think you're right. Most of us deal with the same people over and over, so often it's not someone just brand new, unless there's a new project or new emphasis. Of course, we've got the additional funding that we received from ARPA, which may be creating some new vendors or new people that we're initiating contracts with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think the type of contract, we were using this and asking for the same type of information that we were asking for somebody who was providing equipment as somebody who was providing services for the poor, needy, canned goods. So I think that we just need to look at it for its basic objective in what we're looking for to strengthen the approval of the contract.
So councilors, would you agree, can we just make a motion then that we would go up, we'll have a period of time where we go out and generate more feedback that would be sent back to the team that's working on this, and then we would reconvene, everybody get a chance to read this, and we'll distribute it to the other counselors as well, and then set some time forward, from that point forward, as when we meet again to consider this document. What do you think?
Or you think we should vote on it?
And we won't necessarily vote on it, I just wanted to make, how would we state in our action what next steps are?
Okay, well, I'll make
What
a
do you think?
motion.
Okay.
And my motion would be that we take what the changes that have been provided to us by Attorney Stanley and study them. And share them with our fellow council members and gather the comments and meet to discuss again after we've gotten everyone's comments, you know, how we want to proceed, because who knows what kind of comments we're going to get. I mean, we may get a lot, or people may not even read it. So they may not read them now. We don't know what people are doing. So, but that's my motion, is that we take it, study it till our next meeting, share it with our fellow council members, and see what their thoughts are.
I'd like to amend her motion slightly. And it would be, the substitute motion would be that we make sure this version includes the work that's been done by Melissa Smiley and Administrator Kidd before we send it out.
Does this reflect that? Let's ask the question.
He's not sure.
You're not sure? Okay.
I don't know, yeah. Ms. Kidd may know. I don't know.
Okay, she said it looks like it does.
Start from any place.
Okay. Well, in that case, I withdraw my substitute motion, and I'd like to second
Thank
the
you.
motion offered by Councilor Abbott.
I've had a motion and a second. Any further questions, discussion? We'll call for the vote.
I do have
Yes.
one thing. I noticed that there's no date on here, on the form, and it seems like if we had a date, that would help everybody, because you could look at the date on the last time you filled out a form and say, I filled out a form on this date.
It should be at the very end.
Under the signature, there's a date.
Oh, well, okay, I just missed it, but it'd be nice if it was on the front page. Just because, to simplify somebody's life.
All right. So we have
Just a thought, now I can.
I know it's good.
That could be in your contract.
Happy
I can put that in my
Thank you.
word.
All right, Councilor, so we have the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank
We'll be
you.
getting this
Thank
information
you.
back and get that feedback. Thank you. The next item, and this was actually a carryover from a previous meeting that we canceled, and so I don't know if there's readiness. I know, Ms. Kidd, we had not talked with you about it, but there was some media consideration that you had presented to the leadership team, and would you like to table that and we bring that to our next, or you?
I would like to ask the administration committee, the stall on this now is budgeting concerns. We don't budget like we used to in the city council office, and so Jeff and I kind of got crossed, and that I'm looking at a certain level of budgeting, but it doesn't have an explanation. And that explanation is, for years we had professional services, and professional services was used to support our contractual needs that administratively serviced all 9 counselors. Now that money is being divided by 9, and I thought with this particular fiscal year, as I approached to do what I pro-offered to you, that we had come back to that. Now I find myself trying to figure out where we are going to get additional monies for additional services. So he and I are going to talk when he gets back in the office next week to make that determination and then bring that back to you. And I also would ask the council, right now we are being serviced by one contractor who has not, well actually it's two, that we have not advanced funds for this year. I would like for us to adopt the same language that we saw in the contract that came before us today. I think it was, I don't remember, but it's usually funding for the next 3 years if funding is available, so that we can go ahead and push those out July 1st instead of coming back to bringing it to you all. Yet it does gives me some pause, because I always like to work with every administration just to see if you still want to stay with that individual. But normally what happens to us is our stuff get pushed all the way down the road. And so now I'm sitting in September with a vendor that has not been paid for work that he's been working on from July 1st, because we've been trying to appropriately get it before Budget and Finance, before administration, Budget and Finance, and then the full council. So those are some types of things that I think that the council needs, every administration needs to have a protocol that gives the administrators a little bit more direction as to how to support your contracts. Because if not, you have a break in service with things that are important to you, such as our website. We have one guy who is servicing our website, and some other third-party needs that we have, like our MailChimp, which was disconnected for about 24 hours because his card expired. But he just had enough, he did have enough money on there to go in and said, okay, look, I just need to update my card. I forgot to update it there. But those could be little glitches that could, in my opinion, have impact on us getting timely information out to your constituents.
I mean, I like that idea. I'm sorry,
okay.
Madam President. And I know the devil's in the details and what the particular contract is, but I think being able to have service be continuous, but have an out, have a chance you can like terminate for convenience, which was the case today, or make it subject to the appropriation being provided in the budget, automatically renewable unless you do something to discontinue it or something. I just think, because I know, at the beginning of the fiscal year, it's like jammed up trying to get contracts done and started. It just seems like it would be efficient.
It would be. We're always a little bit lagged. What works for everybody else doesn't seem to work for the council. But we are lagged with renewing our contractors, our vendors. So that would be, so when I do circle back around with that will be an all-encompass, try to language change it, check it, and I will check it off certainly with the appropriate departments to make sure that it's right before you all. But that would be a recommendation coming from us, that our contracts are renewable unless, and then there is almost, I think every contract that the city is, there's an ejection clause in it with notice. Some are 10 days, some are 30 days. That if you get in along, say if this administration changes and we're into September of a new administration and they decide they don't want to work with XYZ vendor, we just give them notice and then pull the services and go with another vendor of that council's choice, or within an administration goes with a different vendor. So that was just information.
Regarding the professional services, now we started taking that money and dividing it up amongst ourselves for some very strange reasons. This idea that we need $100,000 more to spend on our districts and have no professional services funds, that's cutting off your nose to spite your face. I believe that if we feel like we put too much money in for professional services, then move some of it to discretionary and have the discretionary be what you get and the professional services be for actual professional services.
Right.
Rocket scientist idea, but I just won't go there, but what we've done in the past is not necessarily wise. It just, everybody loves money, but it doesn't. We had a nice conversation about that at the council meeting today. But, we're not 15-year-olds, and we could do better. But I've always had a problem for the last however many years we've been doing it with taking all of our professional services money and just dividing it amongst ourselves. That seems, and then needing to donate some back when we needed to hire someone because we'd taken all the money. It did not make sense to me, but I'm just one of nine.
I'm sorry.
Let us know if you need us to make a donation in the meantime for your item number 3B.
Well, all right. Well, what we'll do then, we'll proceed with, since this was just information only, there's no action required, and then we'll just let you continue to work, and then you'll bring this consideration back to us. That includes some of the things that we've been talking about and some of the, I won't say roadblocks, but issues that you're aware of that could make it a better system. As far as old business, counselors, I did provide you with a handout regarding, or just let me set this up to begin with. I did want us to consider, as the administration committee, looking at our city council meeting format. And quite often you'll see during the meeting, and maybe it's just a simple change as far as when there's presentations or there's opportunities that we'd like to bring people forward to make presentations or to provide us with information, how that is listed on our agenda. And most importantly, when we entertain community voices or wanting to allow speakers to come and address the council. There is an ordinance or city code that does describe what that behavior should be and what the information someone wants to bring to us, how it should be tied to our speakers list. So I've just passed this out today for your review. No action today, but you have in front of you order of business or excerpts from several other municipalities, and just wanted you to give some thought on what's being done in other areas and how we can strengthen this. I know that it's very important to each of us that we do want to get the feedback from our citizens. Most municipalities, citizens have to come and they're speaking to address the council regarding a specific agenda item number. But we know there are opportunities where residents will bring us a concern that really needs to get in front of the mayor or his team or administration. Most importantly, that's probably who that information needs to go in front of. And so sometimes they only get this opportunity through community voices. But I did just want to put this out in front of you. I know that practice that's been going on under my leadership of how we have been putting this speakers list out. I just want to be sure we're being fair and get the consensus of the council on which way we want to move. And so I just wanted to start that discussion and give opportunity for us to look at it from a standpoint of this council meeting is a business meeting. And so we are conducting ourselves in a certain way, but we want to be sure that also when people come to address the council, we have those expectations and of what that communication should be. So I just didn't want to know if you all wanted to have any dialogue or have any thoughts on that as we move forward.
Well, I've been giving it a lot of thought because having sat in that chair and had to deal with some of the people that we've had to deal with, I mean, you would really like to be able to eliminate all the people who just want to grandstand or yell and scream or put on a show. But then you have legitimate complaints of citizens. Let's say somebody's been trying to get the city to do something that is its job, and the city, for whatever reason, they've just thrown up roadblock after roadblock. When the citizen gets so frustrated that they're about to explode, they ought to be able to come before the council and publicly state, this is the issue, this is the problem, this is what I've done, and this is what nobody will pay any attention to. I mean, it's sad that people get to that point, but I have known a lot of them. Sometimes I felt like I'm one too. Where you just try and try and try, and you seem to run into people who don't want to do their jobs. So, I've thought about how could we word it where we can not have to deal with the people who just want to see themselves on Facebook putting on a performance, and the people who have a legitimate gripe that's not on the agenda, but they need somebody to listen to them, and sometimes it has to be us, because when we all turn over and we look at the mayor or the joint chiefs of staff and say, and then usually something happens. But the poor person has gone through trying to, get something done. So I've been trying to figure out, how do you eliminate the bad actors and keep normal citizens who are trying to live in Birmingham and live a decent life? How do you differentiate between those? And maybe it's how often they can, maybe it's, because it's real, I've thought about language, what we could say. So far, so,
Well,
Counselor?
I was going to say, that's interesting about limiting the number of times you can come, because I think I remember from my Radio Warrior days, when being up here, when we had some very colorful citizens who liked to come, and I think you couldn't come every week.
Well, you can't come every week now, but you could come every other week.
So, but that's because we don't allow speakers every week.
No, we allow speakers.
Allow speakers every week. It's just how we put the list out. So I've not been putting the list out every week.
Okay.
First and third Tuesdays.
Okay.
So the list needs to go out every week, in my
Okay.
opinion. But I would like to see some guidelines.
Yeah.
And especially in the nature of what Mrs. Abbott is saying, because I don't want to ever prohibit a resident who truly has an item that they really need to have discussed. Sometimes it's as simple as, I received notification of the wet weed abatement, or I've been noticed by code enforcement. And of course, by not allowing that every week, I realize
The timeliness.
the timeliness of that.
Yeah.
But I would like to put some structure around because so often people, when they fill this out, they don't have an item number that they want to address. And not everything is an agenda item number that maybe we need to hear as well. So,
And sometimes they put something down and then they talk
and they
about
talk about something totally
else.
different. So true.
Well, I just want to say that I do think it's important that the citizens can speak, and I think because for me, it's hard for me to remember, which meeting is presentations and but I'm sure I could do better with that. But I mean, when citizens want to speak, they're expecting that, okay, Tuesday's council meeting, I can go address the council. So I think that needs to be available. I do think that the 3-minute limit should be consistently enforced, and then the express permission for an extension beyond that 3 minutes needs to be granted, because I feel like sometimes we just kind of let people go over. And so I think being very consistent and giving everyone the same access, if 3 minutes is it, then it's 3 minutes for everybody.
And we used to have lights. We used to have a red, yellow, and green light.
These used to light up as a countdown for the person that's
So the
standing
person
there.
knew it was
Right there now.
Yes.
It's on TV when the TV is working now.
Okay.
But the speaker can't
but
see
they
the
can't
TV.
really see it. They've got to pay attention to that.
It was really for you all. Yeah, it was for you all.
Yeah, so, and I think as much as we'd like to probably limit it to whatever's on the agenda, I think we can't limit
No.
it.
And-
Because,
But
and
maybe,
so,
but maybe they could have had some interaction with the city department concerning it first, or some history of the problem. Because if you just up and say a tree fell in the road and nobody came and cleaned it up, well, all 311 they would have.
And I do want to thank, there's administrative staff that stand there every week, and they're triaging what some of the concerns that people are bringing. And so by going through this process, we have been able to, I won't say eliminate, but to assist the resident. Here's who you should be, that's it, and divert them to who you should actually be speaking to. This may not be an issue that needs to be addressed by all 9 counselors. And so they've done a very good job of managing that, I think, and it's been helpful to us as counselors as well as to the process. That, you know, I'm here to talk about what happened in District 7, and so then let's go get you a District 7 staffer. Have you talked with the office before? What you think?
yeah. And
Some
how
of that is happening
they need to be
now.
more targeted, yeah.
But I do like this idea. I mean, it even says here item number / topic. So it doesn't always have to address the item number, but even as Ms. Zabba said,
topic.
sometimes the topic is totally, you get up there and you start speaking and the topic doesn't match what you're speaking to.
Well, I think right now we have more frustration than we've ever had because we haven't been able to do the most basic services to an acceptable level because of labor shortages and what have you. So I think people having a chance to vent some of this frustration is therapeutic, and we just have to like bear it and hear it and hear them out. But I do like the part where it says council members shall listen without engaging in dialogue. I think that is very important because people are going to come and they're going to push our buttons, and I think it's important to let them vent this frustration. But how do we train ourselves to fight back that urge to have a retort or have a, because
I think we just hand them all. No, because everything is the mayor's job. Nothing is our job except legislation and approving the budget. So the best thing, I think, is to hand them off to not to the mayor himself, but to the administration and say, can you have someone speak to this person if they're not a legitimate gripe? If they're just here because they're mad because we're not funding them, what can we do about that? Nobody can fix that. But if they have a legitimate issue, the person who's going to fix it belongs to the administration. They never belong to us. Mm-hmm. We don't have any people.
yeah. And I think another thing that is going to make it hard for us to be discerning about who gets to speak and who doesn't get to speak, or qualifying to speak. First of all, the administration, that's going to be tough, and the equal, the equal protection, if you will, under the law is going to be hard for staff to, at their discretion, administer at the door. And we have people who are dealing with, who have different levels of functioning, emotionally, cognitively, and so we're just going to have to deal with all of it, really, I think. Within decorum, I think we should have some standards of decorum, profanity, raising your voice,
And would you sign,
addressing.
would you sign up? This is on every form, every
Okay.
week, and it talks about that. Language, how you address the council, any situation where you may be barred for further attendance. You're actually, that is there for you each week when you sign up. So, but I do agree with you on ensuring that we do follow what we have written already, the 3 minutes, and how that should be administered. When time is up, time is up.
Yeah.
And
If we like
then
what you're
educate
saying.
our residents in practice what you're going to get up here and talk to us about so that we can get a full understanding of what your issue is so that we can relate it as it needs to be, because we want to address them and assist our residents in the concerns that they have. So I as the current chair of this dais right now, that is something that I will definitely take into, adhere to, and balancing out the 3-minute time requirement and just ensuring that residents understand we've already got an ordinance that speaks to the way that this should take place. We technically do.
Maybe before we invite speakers up, we could recite, sort of like you do with the consent agenda, like read the decorum every time, just to remind people, like when you signed in, you agreed to blah, 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 blah. Because I think people need to be reminded. You may have to read it before you call each speaker up.
Did you have a comment, Mrs. Kidd?
Well, that was definitely going to be one of the ones, is that I do think as you do the consent, I think you should read the decorum statement and you should activate your sergeant at arms, which is the police officer of the day. That if they do, because, too many times and this is a grandmama term, we swat a fly with a sledgehammer. It is not very many, but it is enough that come that just go and look for the camera. But I do think that there are concerned citizens who do want valid information and concern, and they have been triaging those out there very, very well. I also, and I'm sure you remember, Councilor Abbott, in my second year, we went through this agenda and we did change some things, the order of services, the order of the agenda, to move the speakers or to do something. I think it was to just cut down on the time, the speaker time, because when I came it was 6 minutes per council or all at one time, or 9 minutes or something. So we changed that. But I think that and we talked about at that time having speakers come, and it's hard on you all, and this was just talked about, that cameras didn't come up until 9:30. And so speakers could come and speak from 8:30 to 9, and then you guys went to y'all 9 o'clock pre-council, but that just got to be a long day for you all. And then when we talked about taking it to the end of the council meeting, well, at that time we were having 4 o'clock meetings, so you trying to listen to a speaker at 4 o'clock, that was too long. So, I think that the triage, the reading of that, and enforcing what you all have already put in by ordinance should be the beginning of the discussion, because some people just go on and act way too loud. And I've seen, I thought I had seen everything, but I really have not. The camera was, they were getting on the elevator to leave and they were quiet. And the cameraman ran out. And when they saw the camera, somebody stuck their hand in front of the elevator door and voice just went way up and started the whole thing all over again. So there are some camera players. So I think we will continue to do the triage along with the mayor's staff. They're leading that, and we're sitting there taking note of that for you all. And I would suggest read the declaration in the Sergeant at Arms.
I think that's a very good suggestion. I do, when we start talking about some of the demeanor that we've seen in recent weeks, and we know people get passionate when it's something that you're passionate about. You can begin to speak, and then that passion just overflows you. I do want to say that the National League of Cities, they did publish an article where locally elected officials are among some of the most abused and stressed type positions as far as getting feedback from individuals when they're faced with an issue. So it is out there that it is something that can be abused and can be, lead to, I won't say so much stress, as it can lead to confusion or disorder.
It has led to, Madam President, we call this coming behind the rail. I've had some council administration that would allow me to tell people not to come Because once people get over here and that person out there don't know why that person came over here, people start reaching that and getting closer to our counselors and National League of Cities, and I think in the city county manager also published that there has been not just abuse, it has actually been violent death with counselors from the constituents. So it is a concern of mine sitting out here, but I play to the temperament of the council, but no one should come behind that rail. I always try to get your attention and say, would you go to them? Because then I know you feel safe. But to just have somebody pushing and coming in, that is just not, that's not prudent for the overall safety of the council.
Council Clark?
I have a question about just your authority as president. Are these types of things like purely within your powers, your authority to decide, but you're asking our opinion?
Well, of course I want to get consensus from the council. There are certain, just as being the chair under Robert's Rules of Order, it is your role to keep the meeting in order as far as the agenda, being sure that when people come, they start addressing individual counselors, or even we talk out of turn sometimes. You're supposed to be called upon or recognized by the chair before you begin to speak. And so that preview is out there under Robert's Rules of Order, but of course we do have an ordinance that talks about or speaks to some of this as well, or city code.
Well, we have rules. Council actually has its own rules that nobody on the council even. We don't obey them. We have time limits on the amount of time that individual councils can speak.
How many times?
I enforced that and just, made that one over that you took the place of so angry because, you wanted to talk incessantly, and it's not fair to everyone else. You have to be balanced, and the public speakers, some of them got to go on forever, and then some of them get cut off. You've got to treat everybody the same, in my opinion, and we do have rules that we pass. Now, it's not this same we, but this is a continuous body, and until the council changes our rules, we should follow our rules. But I would dare say that no one on this council even knows we have any. I'm sure they're in the binder that Cheryl gave, because we all got a binder when we came. I'm sure the rules are in there, but it's just that,
Back and revisit that. Yes.
It's just like dividing up the professional services money. We had strong-willed people who wanted to do things or didn't want to do things, and we just kind of quit.
So I guess my question is
Yes.
even though the rules say every meeting, sometimes you put this out, sometimes you don't.
And that's why
your discretion. That's at your discretion.
No. So that's why I want to adhere to the rules.
Okay.
But I want to have the guidelines out there for it. So no, that is not. The rules say it should go out. And so that's why I wanted to bring this before the administrative team, just to get your feedback from administration. And then I feel like as chair, I received good information today as far as ensuring that all counselors understand what those rules are, so that we can act accordingly. Because if you're going to take your power and then allow a resident who is going over the 3 minutes, then you're going to vote to suspend the rules and allow that behavior to continue, then you're not helpful to the rest of the members on your council. So that's something administratively that is the chair, I don't mind, I will adhere to and follow the rules as we have them written already, and go and provide those. Mrs. Kidd, would you all be able to just give us, I know Deputy Administrator had given me those sections, but maybe it's just something we could provide out to our counselors again. I know you've given that to us when we first got on board.
Yeah, it's following that section 2-1.
Okay.
But I will do that.
Thank you. And so then we will go back to putting that list out, but we'll adhere to our rules as we have them. And just, Councilor Clark, you had said you wanted to know, we do have, presentations are second and fourth, and I would like to keep that, because then it can lengthen your meeting and those type things. And then it's a way for us to also be sure that the people that we want to present to, we've got the proclamations ready or the resolutions ready and those type things. And we give them some type of notice so that we'll stay with the second and fourth. Is that okay? All right. Any other?
So to tell people when their time is, lights that they could see.
Yeah, and we are
Our renovation.
And I did see, well, I didn't see, but the speakers did go last week to get the sound. So we are on target. We're moving to do the soft renovation. So these clocks will come back up.
Perfect.
So that they can see the time on both sides. They'll see the time. It won't be lights anymore, but it'll be the timer.
Just a way that the speaker knows.
Okay. I'm not going to go for it.
A lot of them seem surprised that they've only gotten halfway through what they wanted to say. And I used to sit at home and practice when I had to speak before the council because I knew they were going to cut me off at 3 minutes. And we just kind of got loosey-goosey.
Okay.
But it makes the meetings go much more smoothly when everybody knows what the rules are and follows them. And I would like to suggest on this,
Yes.
I guess we would have to, section 212. But impertinent, maybe that should be inflamed. I don't mind if someone's impertinent with me, but I don't want them angry mobs to come get us when we leave. But that's just a thought. I was thinking about some of the personalities we over the years, and
Yes, and Madam,
Yes, Ms. Kidd.
may I ask, what also helped to facilitate some of the confrontation is just as we would say, the chair would say, the mayor's staff is here, would you go and talk to them about weed abatement, because we couldn't do anything about it. But when the council would cut off a speaker and they had something to say, maybe if it was pertaining to one of the councilor's district, that councilor would say, I'm getting my chief of staff to come forward. So that ante-room, we are still discussing how we want to use that. With Texas and so forth today, a lot of the staff is staying in the back, but we used to have the lights where you could hit the light on the dais. And your person would be right
these
there.
call buttons.
Yes, a call button. The person would be right there.
Okay.
but each person had one staff member, and you could fit 9 people back there, 7 or
Well,
30,
you
or
can just designate one.
designate somebody,
To
or
come, and it could just alternate, but I think that's a feature that puts your staffer close to you for any reason. That 7, when you hit 7, that light lights up and they come to you.
Perfect.
Or,
Something we'll have with the renovations, or
that's
that's
something
something
that,
that,
again, that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
If that's a feature that you all want, we are still discussing how
Okay.
we want to utilize that room to its highest and best use.
I would like that type of response or something.
And that would give them a chance to have some they don't ever really get together.
And this is getting tighter and tighter.
So, I mean,
but the problem because Martha used to sit, wait for me to need something. And all the assistants get in there and start chit-chatting. And it just became,
social time.
yeah, it was just like a big party right there.
I remember it used to get catered. Remember Arcadis? Linda Malone used to cater that room sometimes. But anyway.
That was 20 years prior, because I don't think it happened.
So 20 years for your time,
Yes,
right?
had to be.
I was gonna say, Jean said she doesn't remember it either.
Uh-oh. I was here longer than y'all. Look at that. No, I was here before y'all.
Yes.
Not longer.
That's right.
Not longer.
All right. Well, councilors, thank you for the feedback. And really, I do appreciate it. And especially from Mrs. Abbott having sat in this chair and Mrs. Kidd, you've been here to see all that comes before this chair. And of course, your thoughts too.
That strange council that everybody was new.
I came in April, and I think you all were seated in
What year?
October. 2002.
What's the check? That's right.
Anniversary.
Well, I think my date was March 3rd, 2000.
Birthday.
Oh, nice. Well, all right, counselors, thank you again for this feedback, and we'll just see how it goes from this point forward, from going back and resurrecting the placement of the list out, and then going with the guidance you've given about rereading the statement, and then we'll come back later and talk again if we need about any further action on this. Good. Was that it? Okay. All right, this time then, we have a motion and a second for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor, aye. Aye. Thank you all so much. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.